good if you could be in here. Yeah, everybody.
That's all right. Just makes it easier for our vision as well. Well, firstly, thanks for your interest in wanting to know, how we organise these, because obviously, if we have a number of people in a certain locale who want to know things about how things are organised, it can be very helpful in terms of organising things in the future. So thanks for your interest in that.
Yeah, so what we want to talk about firstly is a bit about finances, how we use...
We'll probably this one first, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we'll do finance second.
I thought that was mine. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk first about the type of people or the qualities we look for in people who assist us to plan events or to do the logistics of events. I should say we plan the events, but we're very grateful for people in the countries that we go to who at times help us to locate venues, help us to manage equipment, store equipment, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But there are, as you might imagine, there's certain qualities and aspirations that a good helper has. And we really are only interested in working with helpers who have these qualities and aspirations, just because if you don't have them, you get into addiction when you are quote unquote attempting to help. And it actually causes more problems, it wastes a lot of time. And so it's very important to us that we explain what these qualities are and that you can have some self-reflection about it, and we'll certainly be reflective to you about it if we are working with you or if you're wanting to work with us.
So the first two qualities, first thing we're looking for is that a person loves God first. The main reason why we're looking for that is that we feel that people who have other reasons for helping us, such as personal reasons, they want assistance, or they want to help us to get some personal time with us and things like that, we feel that that's all selfish. But if the focus is loving God first, then you want to be focused. You'll be focused on what can I do to help whatever God's plans are for Earth, to do that first in my life.
What is very common is that people think that they are helping us. And while that's really not how we view it, we only want to work with people who are interested in helping others to learn God's truth. That's what we're here to do. And so if you're here to sort of get approval from us or feel like you're helping mummy and daddy, if you like, or feeling like you being a good person because you're associated with divine truth, or not many.
Or that you're going to get more time with us personally because you're helping us.
These are all insincere reasons, and they will be exposed in the process of working together.
Yeah. Second thing is that you love people. That it's not that you care about how people feel, and also care about their comfort, and want to do things in a caring manner to people. But a lot of people try to help us, but when we ask them to do something, they're just very flippant and they dismiss our requirements quite readily, not thinking about the people they're trying to assist. And so they often try to do things rapidly without much consideration.
Or they consider money before the ease of you being able to hear something, or they see a venue that they think is ideal, but there's only 2 toilets. And for 120 people, 2 toilets means that every break ends up being 40 minutes rather than 10 minutes, if you like. So a lot of people think that they want to help, but then they don't consider, well, how will this be for the individual people who come? Will it be comfortable for them? Will it be optimal for them to hear God's truth? Will they find it easy to access the location? Will they be able to visit the bathroom when they need to? Those kinds of things.
Yeah. And fundamentally, what happens too is we tell people who help us what to do. And a lot of people don't like being told what to do. And so they come up with their own ideas. We find this is particularly the case with men, actually, who have tried to help us in the past. And quite often they say, oh, I want some help. We tell them what to do, and they do almost completely opposite of what we want. Right? And if you're going to help somebody, the very first thing you need to do to help them is to ask them what they want, and then to help them do that. That's how you help a person. And it seems to me that a lot of people don't have that underlying motivation right from the beginning. So don't help for your own sake. You're helping for the sake of furthering the interest of God's truth on earth. And, you know, any help you can give is much appreciated, but we're not in the business of praising you for every tiny bit of help you give. Do you understand? The average way that things on earth happen is that almost everything on earth that currently happens wouldn't happen unless people got a lot of praise for them happening. Right?
Or addictions in some regard. You're
not going to get that here. In fact, if anything, you might get, not by us, but by many people, you'll get criticised and frequently not recognised. Now, we will recognise you, obviously, and we recognise the help you give, but not everybody who comes to our events are very appreciative, and frequently you won't get recognised for the effort that you put in. So it's going to have to be from your heart rather than just in order to get some attention or glory or other related things. Yeah.
And the willingness to be humble about your own feelings is extremely important. So when you're doing something to assist an event to go ahead and you get some feedback from Jesus or myself or someone else who's helping, if you're not willing to feel about that, you're going to get resentful or angry, you're going to rebel against the instruction. Or if you are here helping at an event and people in the audience are very unloving towards yourself or undermining, there's the necessity for you to feel about that and then address the issue of love. But you do need to feel about it. Be willing to feel about it.
Yeah, so it's not about controlling others or pushing others around, but rather just coming to terms with the fact that you have feelings and you need to learn how to be humble about having those feelings. And you also need to want to know the truth about your feelings, because quite often we do finish up talking to people who help us about their feelings, about how they're getting treated. Frequently, how Mary and I get treated is quite badly, even at groups that we hold. And frequently, the people who help us get treated quite badly at the groups we hold. And you've got to be prepared for that, emotionally prepared for that. Make sense? So if you think everybody's going to love you while you're providing something loving to them, well, think again. That's not going to be the case. We're in the business of educating people about love. That means many of the people don't know about it. And therefore, they don't know what loving is. And so they're going to treat you the way they treat you based on what they think love is. And frequently, it's going to feel pretty bad. Yeah.
And if you have a demand that people love you while you give a gift, you're no longer giving a gift.
No.
You're in an addiction yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. We don't do that with you, and we expect the helpers who we have to not do that with others either.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jesus has already mentioned the desire to follow instruction and direction.
Very important.
Very important. Very important. We are ourselves very busy in Australia as well, doing lots of things with God's Way and presenting other material in our studio and in the local area. So there's a lot that we're doing at any one time. And when we're communicating with you, if you're not listening and not following direction, it chews up a lot of our time having to correct you, having to, spend a lot of time. And often I try to do those interactions via video call if I can, but sometimes because of time differences and because there's lots of other things on the go, we're emailing back and forth and waste a lot of time if people are not thorough in their reading of emails and the reading of documents. There's a document we have for people searching for venues that I've put a lot of time into making sure it's quite
precise,
thorough and detailed. And if you don't read that or you neglect the instructions there, then there's no point continuing, really. It just wastes so much time if I'm having to take you through a job that I've already given instructions for. So desire to follow directions and to be truly helpful, not your definition of helpful, but listening to what help is required and being willing to do that. And then being thorough. Thorough is a big quality of anyone who wants to do anything in a loving way. Needs to be thorough. So that's about...
Again, we find that many men fall down in that regard. They're used to the women that they're with doing all the thorough things, and the men just do the bits that they like.
Yeah.
And that often turns out quite badly when we put something in the hands of a man compared to putting it in the hands of a woman.
You know what I mean by slapdash, doing something slapdash, just like, oh, it'll be fine.
Quickly get it over with, so I want the accolade.
You know,
I want the accolade.
Yeah, this is a common injury that a lot of men have, and we run into lots of problems because there's so much spirit opposition to what we do, as many of you felt, even you trying to get here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that can go wrong unless we really look at being very clear in our communication with venues.
Dedicated to the principles.
Yes. Yeah. Upholding love, truth and humility in all of our dealings with people, being thorough about what we need, making sure we've covered all the bases with the venue, because if we arrive and suddenly there's no whiteboard and there was supposed to be, or there's not enough chairs and there was supposed to be, then there's a lot of people coming who are relying on what we've arranged, and if we haven't been thorough with the venue before we arrive, which a lot of you might be dealing with a venue or various logistics before we arrive, if that's not dealt with thoroughly once we arrive, that's a lot of pressure upon us then to sort that out, and oftentimes it's not even possible to sort it out once we arrive. So being thorough is very important.
It's better to have disagreements with people sooner rather than later. So what we find is a lot of people who try to help us, they pander to venues, and they basically try to make considered, compromises that Mary and I wouldn't normally make. And the problem with that is that when we get to the venue ourselves, all these compromises have been made that we wouldn't normally make, and then that has a flow-on effect with all of the decisions that we have to make. And particularly if the compromises are being made with the way that the venue itself treats us, then there's quite often an attitude of people looking for venues that, the venue's been so good they've even offered their venue. No, we've paid significant funds to hire these venues. They are providing us a service, not the other way around. We're not providing them one, they are providing us one. And we're paying for it, many times quite expensive payments for it. So for example, this auditorium costs €4,900 for 3 days.
We have a setup day.
We have not yet even received that much in donations to just cover the venue itself. Does that make sense to you? So the way we treat it is, no, we've paid for this venue. It's great when a venue is like this venue has been excellent with us. They've been helpful whenever we've asked them to help. They've been able to follow our directions exactly as we've asked. It's been an excellent venue, but it has been expensive. And many of our venues in Europe and the USA in particular are very expensive, because nowadays they want to charge a lot of money for venues of any type, even small venues. In Austria, we almost paid that amount for a 50-seat venue, So we're talking like significant funds when we come to paying for venues.
Yeah. And further to that point, I fell into the trap early on because I'm so used to people being prejudiced against us. Even anyone just accepting us in a venue, I thought, wow, this is so good. But then you start to engender an attitude that they are, as Jesus said, doing us a favour just by even not rejecting us, which is really the wrong attitude. We are not sinful people. It is not. We treat every venue we come to, our policy, which is another important thing for you to know, our policy is to leave the venue better than we found it. in every regard. So we always clean everything. We clean before, even if it's been cleaned, we still have a team of people who clean. At the end we clean, we make sure all the furniture is exactly where the venue would like it to be, that there's no damage. If there's any damage, that's been repaired. So
or paid for.
So we do treat venues very well and very respectfully. And yeah, so your own, what I'm saying is your own personal emotions about how people view divine truth, you need to deal with them, otherwise they're going to inflect upon your dealings with the staff at the venue.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we've covered.
What was that?
I don't know, somebody's Mac. Thoroughness, attention to detail.
Yep.
Willingness to follow instructions.
So we could call all of that sort of personal qualities, so that they're more character traits, aren't they, that you can develop, that are helpful for organising things.
Anything, really.
Yeah, so things like thoroughness, attention to detail, being specific, being honest, being straightforward, being open, being not being pandering, not being conciliatory, not making compromises. These are all very important personal traits for people who do help us, because this helps us greatly when we get there. The people who are already there in the venue are already used to the kind of people we are. And so in some ways you're our representative. Does that make sense? And so they get to experience what it's like to talk to an honest, truthful person who loves them but also is specific about what they need. And they get to feel all of that before we arrive, so when we do arrive it's not such a shock. Because there are venues that have been shocked, right? Yeah.
Because we know the way we approach things is that we are very thorough, and in particular Jesus is very thorough about the technical requirements. He thinks a lot about what we need. We arrived at this venue and we're pretty self-sufficient within it with cabling and everything. So when we make a request of a venue or of you, it's very well thought out. And many times people think, oh, Jesus hasn't thought of this other option. I'm just going to write back and tell him, you could really do this with 3 video cameras and this, and not understanding all of the considerations we have for audio and video and how it's going to be used in the long term. So that's another thing about just, it's not about not having helpful suggestions, but when you haven't really considered what our aims are and why we do what we do, and you give a suggestion, that is quite pointless and quite disrespectful as well. Yeah. So if you want to make suggestions, if you want to be involved and understand what we're doing, then yes, help is wonderful, and any inspiration or other ideas you have is great, but you must be informed in that process. So,
but just bear in mind too, when it comes to tech, I've been an electronics and computer engineer for 43 years. There's not a lot I don't understand about all the tech that's around and out there, right? There's reasons why I choose what we choose. A lot of it's to do with simplicity of operation, and making it easy for us to travel with. There's weight considerations and all sorts of other considerations. And I've been involved in this engineering area for 43 years of my life in this life. There's not a lot that you can share with me that I don't know about. Sometimes there might be equipment that I don't know about, but even then I do a lot of research and there's a lot that I do. So don't be surprised that I dismiss your recommendations very rapidly, because I've already heard it, already looked at it, and already know that it's not going to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Have some respect for the fact that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's, you need to be, I suppose another thing that I notice is it's important to be, you know how we talked about this self-involved and self-indulgent injury this weekend? You know, when you're a helper, it's about giving a gift to others. Service to others. So being able to observe what the venue is like, or what the conditions are like before an event happens, is quite important. But then during an event, if you're a part of a helping team, it's important to be conscious of what's going on. Sometimes there's a child crying and someone just needs to kindly say to the parents, could you please take the child outside because it's interfering with the recording. And for Jesus and I to do that, sometimes we do that, but it sort of stops everything. It stops everything for everyone. Whereas if there's an attentive helper who's just sort of aware of the environment, they can do that quickly and it doesn't interrupt the proceedings. For example, shutting a door, noticing the temperature, little things like that are very helpful. That's an attitude of service.
If everyone's putting on jumpers, you know it's too cold. If everyone's stripping off and sweating, you know it's too hot.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can't do anything about it, you know, because some of the venues we've been are gifted to us from people, and you know it's hot when it's hot and it's cold when it's cold. But for the most part, we try to. We know that you know if it's 4 degrees Celsius, and you're sitting in the venue at 4 degrees Celsius, you're going to be freezing. After a while, sitting by in that temperature, it'll be cold, and you're not going to be hearing anything anymore. You know, we've had an event like that, an entire event where it was like that, and it's very uncomfortable. And then you have other ones where in Australia they're 45 degrees Celsius, and there's no comfort control, no aircon, no anything, and no breeze. It's impossible to teach somebody under those circumstances.
There's already so much else going on.
Yeah, they're in too much personal distress to say much to them.
Yeah. So these days we're quite picky, if you like, about things like that. Mm. How comfortable is it going to be for people?
So we're always considering love of the individual and the group, and we're also considering things like, well, where might we be in the future? You know, we're still experimenting with where we're going to be in the future in terms of what locations and so forth. In Europe, we prefer probably the long-term preference is here in Portugal, close to where we are here, and probably in Sweden. That's our long-term sort of preference. But in the interim, we will go anywhere where anybody expresses a desire and there's a group of people who want to come along. And fundamentally, that's our thinking. But we need to also make sure that it's not just an event for the people who are there. It needs to be an event where we can share it with others who are not there. And also bear in mind, Friday and Saturday, you guys were under so much heavy feelings. Most of you didn't even hear what was said, to be honest. So having a recording is great because you can go back to it and you go, that's what I missed out on, that's what was said. And, so it's important for us to be able to give people a recording. And because we are aware that when you're distressed or you have other pressures and spirit pressures, it is very hard to listen to and grasp some of the things we're teaching under those circumstances. And so having a way of recording it and presenting those recordings is quite important to us as well. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I think in terms of...
Yes. So I wanted to give you... Are we up to that?
Yeah.
Finances?
Let's do it.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I just wanted to say, is there any questions about your personal qualities, aspirations? Is that fairly clear?
So we expect you to sort of have at least some of them, rather than come along to develop them. You understand? Like, when people say, but I'm a work in progress, I'll come along and I've got none of these traits. Well, it's that everything you organise with them is going to fail. One way or the other, it's going to fail. And so that's pointless for us because we've got a limited amount of time. You've got to remember when we're organising these trips, we're often organising anything up to 5 or 6 places at a time. And so every problem we have in one place is usually multiplied by 5 or 6 times. And we're organising a lot in that, as well as trying to figure out how we're going to pay for it, for the most part as well. So it is quite difficult for us at times to we've got to be quite economical with the usage of our time when we're meeting with people regarding events, because we're doing it multiplied by 5 or multiplied by 6, and we're also doing it in Australia at the same time as we're doing it on the trip, on the road. On top of that, I do all of our accounts, so that's all done. I run 25 servers as well around the world, 18 of them, 16 of them. 18 of them are in Australia, and I've got 4 at the moment overseas, 22 servers. So, and plus our personal machines, and I look after all of that. So there's a lot we're doing. And so our time is limited, and what we want is the time we spend with people. We want to be with people and not distracted by mundane other things.
Yeah.
So when you do spend time with us, you know we're giving you our total attention, not distracted by other matters.
And the reality is the last 2 years, it's been a lot of work for Jesus and I, and we're actually quite tired and I've had more time, but you've hardly had any time for your personal progress. And so what our desire is, what our vision is that we become economical with these trips, which means that we build relationships with some of you, hopefully, who are sincere about that very first and second aspiration, about loving God first and desiring others to know about God's truth.
Yeah.
If you have those qualities very strongly, then it's going to be very easy to work with you. We're going to be able to find venues as well that we can come back to year after year.
We want repeatable venues.
Yes.
We want to develop relationships with the venues so
Yes.
that we can just come back every year. If we can do that, then we don't have to go chasing another 100 venues to find one.
And if you are sincere about being trained by us, you start to learn, I know exactly what they'd be looking for here, or I can see this won't work because of this factor. We talked about this already, So it becomes more economical for all of us then to be able to repeat these events. And all we need to do, Jesus and I, is to attract the funds to do it year after year, and we don't have to spend months planning it beforehand. There's still a lot of work afterwards in dealing with the recordings and so on that we're really hopeful that we might attract some people who can also help with editing and outputting those things, because then really our time can be spent on the teaching part, which is our passion and where we feel is our time's best used. And we can make things more economical everywhere, but it does require some of these qualities. Yeah.
Nice.
I guess I had two questions. One, firstly, are there any specific roles or jobs that you sort of identify that you would like support with?
There are, but we haven't found too many people who can meet them at this point, because it depends a lot on developing these qualities. So there are some we're sort of trialling out, you could say. So you could say Nellie's getting trialled out, and Anna's getting trialled out in UK, but as yet not fully up to speed with regard to these things. In Australia, we do have a couple of people who are more up to speed in some areas. When it comes to the tech, there's no one.
Yeah, a systems administrator would be awesome. Someone with technical skills in how to manage data and servers that would change Jesus' life. But they would have to have these qualities.
And they're probably going to have 20 years experience in it as well, unfortunately. Because there's a lot I do that is heavily technical.
Computer programming, website development, these kind of video editing. These are all kind of technical jobs that a lot of people think they can do, but they want to do it to their standard, their law, and not to ours. And so it requires some humility to want to do it the way we do it, and to really love God and people to do it for really not much money.
Yeah, and on the tech side, it's difficult because we're handling large amounts of data. We handle every weekend is 4 terabytes of data. On this trip, I had to get miniaturized drives, 8 terabyte drives. They were $1,800 each, and I had to get 8 of them in order to store the data. So that alone is $14,000 Australian dollars. So we're travelling with 70,000 Australian dollars worth of tech now, and it's all sort of cutting edge tech, a lot of it. So you got to know what to do with it, and you know how it works. We have a lot of weight requirements with our tech as well, because obviously the trouble is as soon as we go over weight, they want to charge, on the average for the long hauls example, they want to charge us anywhere up to $2,500 Australian dollars per long haul flight for the overweight baggage if it's 5 kilograms overweight. And besides the carnet and all the other technical requirements we've got, which are passports for our equipment, that's all got to be done. There's all these other things that are done, and getting somebody who's really skilled in that area is going to be quite difficult. So it's very important for us that Mary and I know how to run our own tech for some time to come. Because if we don't, we can't, there's no one we can travel with. We don't have enough funds coming in to pay for a person to travel with us. It's very hard. If we can't do it, then it really can't be done at the moment. And so this is why we've got the kind of tech we have. A lot of it's been purposefully designed to be as simple as possible. So now I've trained Mary; she can run a lot of the audio side of it. Not so, even setting up most of the audio, Mary can now do, and I can focus on the video. And over time, I'll train Mary in the video as well. So we're both able to do things like that. And obviously, for somebody to be beneficial to us, they have to be at every event, and that's really tricky because making someone at every event means that they're going to have to have the personal funds to be at every event, or we're going to have to pay them to be at every event. Now, as I said, it already we'll go through some costs in a minute, so you understand what kind of costs we're talking about. But to pay for an additional person to be at every event, that's tricky in terms of funds, and so we feel it's probably going to be some time before that happens, and also then to have the person skilled enough to be of help to us. Most of the time we end up doing it ourselves anyway, so we might as well do it ourselves anyway, type of thing. We're not adverse to people helping us, but they have to have a lot of desire to get education in all of these technical fields that most people just have a very blasé attitude towards, generally.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's tricky.
And then the other question was, if people do have a desire, what's the process to get involved?
Well, the first part of the process really that we like people to do is to come to God's Way in Australia for a bit and learn some fundamental things about being thorough, being, careful and following direction and all these kind of things, because, that helps us filter out all the people who are not those things. And then we're often left with somebody who is, So that's how we chose Anna in the first place in the UK, was that we found her to be one of the most thorough people we dealt with in certain areas, not in every area. And in other areas she was terrible, and we had to tell her that, But Anna does have passion and desire and follows through. So she's a person who does things like that. But there's areas where she needs to learn as well.
And also, Anna really did select herself through her passion. Through her, she wanted to be involved, she wants to be more involved. She demonstrated that in a number of ways, and then said, I want to help in these ways. Yeah. And we said, let's give it a go, and she was open to feedback. And so,
but there's many areas where there's more education required.
Yeah. As it will be for everyone.
Yeah. Ideally, what we would love is we just say, we want to go to France. And that's all we say. And everything is organised by somebody else. That would be ideal. And we just rock up there and we do it, we do the event, and we go to the next event. That would be the most economical use of our time in terms of teaching. But, that's a fair way away yet. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And we also, there's a principle involved, isn't there, where we believe it's loving. If you're going to ask anyone to do a job, you should have done it first yourself. Yeah. So we don't mind this part where we've done all of the work,
all the organising and all the setup and all
of the wait lists and all of the tech and all of that, because one day it'd be great if someone does that, but then I'll know what I'm asking them to do,
Yeah. So at the moment we do all that. Yeah. There's no one in Australia that helps us either. We do all of that. There's people who help us in terms of financially help us, but very few people who can help us in any other way at this stage, because there's not a lot of knowledge and information and knowing our requirements and all these things. And most people live by their own requirements, we've found. So you can give them a set of requirements, but they're still looking at everything by their own analysis. So when we say a comfortable chair, well, for all of you, that's different. For some of you, that's like a hard seat, that you go numb in 15 minutes later. That's a comfortable chair. Or that's a chair. To us, that's barely a chair, that's a stool or whatever. Not something that someone can sit in for 6 hours and really listen. We're looking for things that people can be there and listen, not be so uncomfortable they can barely hear. So these are the things we consider, and many people offer us venues too, but actually it's for their own sake rather than for other people's, you know. So they offer us a venue, but it's convenient for them, but it's not convenient for everyone else to get there. We'd like to have our venues closer to a city than this, you know, where people can come and not have to hire a car and that. So that we understand for you guys this has been quite an expensive trip. And that's something we try to avoid if we can. But because of this being near the area we want to be in Portugal, we thought we'll give it a go this year and just see whether we can develop a relationship with this lovely venue, you know. Yeah. So we do make compromises in some areas for the future's sake as well. Yeah. Makes sense? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If someone wants to edit the material, do they have to be in Australia?
Probably. There's that's not strictly true, but Nicholas is learning how to edit material. Nicholas is from France, and we've set up a server for Nicholas, so he can have his 40 terabyte server that he's got that's portable, and he can put data on it and edit from there. And I can, to a degree, download. I've set up his server so that I can download over the net from whatever he does. But there's a lot of learning in the editing. And Nicholas and I have had different sessions so far teaching him how to do the edit. And also Nicholas has got his own life and he's doing his own things. And fundamentally, the person who helps us with editing, it's a full-time job, more than a full-time job, because the audio itself usually takes the longest to edit. And if you want to do a really good job of it, which is what I normally do, it can take one day can take anywhere up to 5 days to audio edit. And then the video editing is quite easy because it's just video, switch, done. But the audio editing, as Nicholas is learning, is the trickiest part of the edit. And quite often just 1 day of video will take 6 to 10 days to edit. So you can see if Mary and I are doing an event every weekend, we're going to need 6 people editing, not 1. And also we're talking huge amounts of data. So one weekend, 4 terabytes. You know, most computers are not equipped to handle 4 terabytes of data, and what to do with that data and backing up the data and making duplicate copies of the data, and you know, and then getting it to the stage where it's actually presentable, putting front and end plates on it, putting it up on the net. Most people have no knowledge of all of that, so I usually do all of that. And managing the servers that handle our data, because at some point we're going to have to get away from YouTube because they're starting to monetize our site and they're starting to put ads on our site, and you know, all of these things have to be considered in the future. We want to get away from that. So at the moment I'm setting up, while I've been here in Portugal, I've been setting up 2 servers in the United States for our future, which are faster links where people can download data and things like that. So these are all things that we're planning behind the scenes. So when it comes to editing, yes, we're going to in the end need a team of editors. You won't be able to keep up with us, you know. Even a team won't be able to keep up with us. But we also understand that many of you who could help, they'd probably have to give up their jobs to help, and they'd have to do it as almost like a job, and that means they're going to need funds and money, and we don't have those funds and money at this stage to even help them live. We're struggling to raise enough funds to beyond our own living, to be honest, and all of our expenses and the trips, let alone the aftermath, which is all of the editing and those things. We've even considered paying people to edit, but again, that requires funds. And we're talking, you know, most YouTubers do 15-minute videos. You know, most people who share videos do 15-minute videos. We do 6-hour videos, right? On 3 days at a time. And like this week is going to be 3 days of this seminar, Then 2 weeks later, or less than 2 weeks later, there's going to be 2 more days, full days again, for 5 or 6 hours. And we just did 5 or 6 hours 2 weeks ago in England, and we did 3 days of that. And then we did an extra day in England. That was another half day there. By the time you add up all what we actually produce, it's like huge amounts of data, and it all needs to be stored while people are getting around to do the editing. So we have, the reason why we've got so many servers at home is we've got 400 terabyte servers storing data, and it's full, a lot of them are like, I've had to move data around because they get full of data, but we just haven't had anybody editing. So we've now got the 3 years of data to edit as well, a huge backlog, where we've done events every single weekend or every...
More than that, Joe, we haven't even done the 2019 assistance groups.
Yeah, from 2019 we've done pretty much events every single weekend, 1 day of the week at least, for 5 years, and none of it's been edited. Huge work, amount of work. Just a huge amount.
So in the future, yes, we can see a future where there's people overseas who can access the data and do the editing, because we might need to split up the workload. But
it's hard.
what I say to everyone is, if you can at all come out to God's way and spend some time, it does.
We get to know you. You
get to know us. You get to know, is this really a way I want to work even?
Yeah, or even what I want to do. We find many people want to help us with editing, and then after we get to know them, we feel you're not really interested in editing. You're really interested in this other area. We can't in good conscience ask you to edit, even if we're paying you. If we can't in good conscience ask you to do it when you really love doing something else. You know, that kind of thing. So yeah, we don't want to, we don't want to have people just sitting down at their computers editing all day either. That's not a very good life. I've done it, and I know it's not a very good life. So we are thinking of ways too that we can stream stuff live even. So we do now have the capacity to stream events live, but we find most of the venues don't have the capacity to do it live. So
this one actually does, which is something to consider in future years.
Yeah. If you do it live, then you don't really have to edit it much afterwards or store much afterwards. It's just out there straight away. But it also means that if we're not going to use a service like Facebook or YouTube, which we don't like using for lots of ethical reasons, then we're going to have our own service and have data rates that are quite high so people can download from our own servers. So I'm in the process at the moment of trying to sort that infrastructure out as well. Yeah. So yes, anybody can help, but there's a lot you need to learn in order to help. Yeah. And most people get daunted by it, to be honest, particularly when it comes to the audio. The audio is a bit daunting. The video is quite easy to do, but the audio is quite daunting with regard to helping. Yeah. All right, I thought I'd just give you a brief summary of what kind of costs we're looking at, because it just gives you a bit of an idea of why we do what we do and what we've got to be mindful of, right? So let's do that. So this event, well, I'm going to focus on this event only, not the whole trip, this is just for this event. So this is what this event has cost us. So we had flights. Firstly, there was the share of flights from Australia, just one flight from Australia. The share of that for Portugal, in terms of what we allocate for Portugal, was 1,600. Then we had a flight. We couldn't get any flight to Portugal from England that would allow us to bring all of our equipment unless we went to a business class flight, unfortunately. So that meant that we were paying another 1,540 for the flight just between England and here to just get our equipment here. Then we had the venue itself. So this is this venue.
This is all in Australian dollars, isn't it?
This is all euros.
Euros.
This is all being converted to euro. Right? So this is all euros. So the cost of the venue here was that. Right? And it's an excellent venue, but you can understand why it costs that much too, like power, aircon, everything. You can sort of understand why it does cost that. Then we had a failed accommodation, who refuses to refund us for our accommodation, so that was that. Then we had another accommodation which we're in now, which is that. Then we have another accommodation when we go down south for the third event, which is that. Then we had our car hire, and in Portugal we managed to find this really nice supplier of a car hire in Porto that normally we'd be paying $3,000 a month or something, euros, and we got that for this. Pretty amazing, eh? And the books, we bought the books, this is in euros, 26.70 for the books, and the import of the books, well, it's another €500.
Fuel as well for the big port.
Yep, fuel and stuff. Now, all of that does not include our food, any of the equipment we got, any of the equipment we had to buy for Portugal, which we included stands and other things like that was specifically for Portugal, cables that we had to get for this venue, the import duties of all that, none of that's included. And also, nothing's been given to Mary or myself. So no gift to Jesus or Mary. This is all just expenses. Total price of just this event.
In euros, yeah.
Right? Multiply that by 4, and you get our trip. Now, what have we received in donations? Up until now, we have yet to cover the venue from donations. Of course, we were gifted all of the money to do this event by one person. And if that hadn't happened, we wouldn't actually be here because we wouldn't be able to afford to even pay for it. Make sense? So often we find that the donations cover just the venue. And in England last week, our accommodation was covered as well. And the venue. Yeah. So,
big window, I thought. Yeah.
Sorry?
I was really pleased.
Mary's going, woo, you know, because that's money that we can pay towards next year's accommodation and venue for that event, or for an event similar. But when we shortfalled like that, then obviously we're reliant on sort of people who donate large sums to us in order to get out of those kind of issues. But that just shows you sort of what's involved in the event in terms of, and it is a concern to us that it's so much, but we've tried to do all sorts of things about it, and everything we've tried to do other than do what we've done has not really worked very well. You know, we've tried to live in people's houses. Man, that hasn't worked at all, because people can barely cope with us for one day without getting angry and upset with us, and so that hasn't worked at all. Sometimes after a day, we've had to move out. We've tried to use venues that weren't so ritzy, in the sense that it didn't have, the England venue didn't have aircon, and it had unfortunately uncomfortable chairs, but that wasn't our fault. It was, they chose to give us uncomfortable chairs after we organised comfortable ones. But that often also happens where people decide, oh, we don't care about them that much, so we don't really want them back, so. So we'll give them something that means they're not going to come back. So, you know, we try to organise things in such a way that it's comfortable for all the people coming, but not always possible, unfortunately.
Also, like last year, we tried to do it all in a shorter amount of time. So we nearly moved every week or every fortnight. So our accommodation in each place was far less, but we were exhausted, and also we didn't get time just to
spend with anybody. So all we did was see people at venues, and that was it. There was no personal time. We could get to know people. Already, though, here in Portugal, we've been busy every single. We haven't seen Vila Real. We didn't even know what it was like down there. Have all of you seen Vila Real? No? Oh, I haven't. Not yet, anyway. We haven't seen it because there's been too much to do. You know, like every night we've got 3 hours work to do after these events, just unloading data and all that kind of stuff. I've had servers to fix overseas. We just haven't had any time
we're sort of not on holidays, obviously,
No.
but also we're still running things back home and
Yeah.
inputting on the annual report for God's Way. I've got to proofread that for the guys.
Yeah.
You know, there's different things that we're still kind of working on as we're doing this as well.
And back home, it's our end of financial year for Australia. So now I've got to do all of our accounts and all that stuff as well while on the trip. So we have a lot of that coming up, and then we also still are participating in the running of God's Way in Australia. So we've tried to fairly regularly every month have a meeting with them to help them work through whatever it is they're needing to work through to get things done. And also before I leave, before we come on a trip, I design all the programs that we have with God's Way before we leave. So all the 4 months of programs that they're now doing, we design them all before we left. So besides organising all of our tech and everything else, so you can imagine we have a pretty busy life, right? Yep. So you can see from that these trips are quite expensive. However, what we've found is that sharing truth via video with people is just not effective. You need to have face-to-face with people. What we've found in the past is almost everybody that we've shared video with but never seen them face-to-face, the very first time we meet them face-to-face, most of them never want to see us again.
It's very challenging,
Yeah.
at the least. Yeah.
Yep. And the main reason why is because their impression of what divine truth is from watching the video is all about their interpretation of it. But when we're face-to-face, there is no such thing as interpretation. We're pretty direct about what we're saying and pretty direct about what we mean. And most people are not used to that. They're used to picking and choosing, like a cherry picking. They're used to picking and choosing what they want to hear and what they don't. And when we're face-to-face, that's hard to do, particularly when we're in your face saying, no, you skipped over that. No, this is a problem, that kind of thing. So we have found that face-to-face interactions, and this is something we've found in Australia as well a lot, that really it's only the face-to-face interactions that are truly beneficial. Because of that, we feel even though it's costly to do these trips, it is worthwhile doing them. If we have the means, of course, to do.
And if we now look at Jesus' list here, my spirit friends tell me there is a time in the future where we might have a venue that we don't pay for, and that there might be accommodation attached
at that venue
to that venue that we also don't pay for. So immediately, you wipe out large costs.
Yeah, if you take this out of the cost, and also we wouldn't need a car so much because you could just be at the venue. Do you know what I mean? If the venue and the accommodation is next to each other, that's gone too.
Yes.
Now you take all that, what's the cost now? Compared to €18,000, it's now €3,000 plus whatever we want to gift.
Yeah, we still might want to give books always, Pierre.
Yeah.
So that might be an ongoing cost.
Yeah. But when you examine it, it's like €6,000 compared to €18,000. That's a huge difference, isn't it? And you can imagine €6,000 is almost doable with us with our current donations. We can almost just do that all the time. But when you've got this stuff to do in the middle of it, it just blows things out of the water.
And this is this tricky period that we're in, where we feel like there are a number of people around the world who are kind of wanting more of God's truth. It's not a big group yet, but there's some of you who are like, yeah, give me more. But collectively, there's not a lot of resources because there's not that many of us at this point.
Well, so that being said, a lot of times the way we use our resources are more for personal wants or desires than it is for sharing truth with the world. With Mary and I, all of our resources go towards sharing truth with the world. At home, we have a 20-year-old car. We've given away the cars we had to God's Way. we live in a very small 86 square metre home, right? So 2-bedroom home. Many of you have even been in it listening to presentations, actually, because we actually have gutted the middle of our home every Saturday and put chairs in there and turned it into a venue. So we live very frugally. Mary and I live very cheaply and frugally on our own without any other Divine Truth expenses. We could easily live on, 20 to 30,000 Australian dollars a year, which is about, 15,000 euro, I suppose. Easily.
Well, we do.
We do. That's what we live on. Everything else goes towards Divine Truth. Now, if you think about it, if everybody who heard Divine Truth had that passion for Divine Truth, then we'd have plenty of resources collectively to get things done. But we realise at this stage that's not the case.
It's not the case. No. So we're in a situation where not enough people feel passionate about getting this done. So these costs are actually higher than they would be in future when there might be more people with a more sincere desire. The costs would go down. So it's kind of this infancy phase that we feel that we're in of sharing truth enough that you receive God's love and you feel the value and you want to love others and you
want others to hear it.
Others to share in that gift, really. So our costs are possibly going to be high for some time.
Yeah.
But we do have a vision for the future where either God's way is established in other countries and creates venues and accommodation, or there are people who have suitable venues and accommodation.
Or collectively a group gets together and says, let's make a venue, or let's buy a venue, or let's...
And for 1 month every year, it'll be available to Divine Truth.
And then the rest of the time it could just be rented out normally or whatever.
Because what would also save us a lot of effort and energy is if we could come to a location for a month, stay there, set up a venue for once, and then hold 3 or 4 events. We could hold as many events as we wanted in that month period because we wouldn't be packing up, travelling, setting up a venue, packing it up again. We could hold a number of events in the single venue, would mean we're more refreshed. And also, if there wasn't the huge costs involved, then a lot of different groups could come to that venue over that period of time, or the same group could come.
The venue doesn't have to be a huge venue, it could just be like 50 or 60.
Yeah.
And we just do sort of the same event next week and the same event the week after with a different group of 50 or 60, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's our desire, that we would find venues that we could set up for a longer period and use them for different groups. Yeah.
Makes sense? Tim?
Where can people donate? Normally you put the website on the thing. If you want to donate online?
Towards
Divine Truth, towards...
that's just on our donation page.
Yeah.
If you just go... I forget to mention this to everybody, but it's donate. As you can tell, I think it's donate.divinetruth.com. And on there's all sorts of ways you can donate, either via Wise or via credit card or all sorts.
Wise is the one, yeah.
Wise is really good because what we find with Wise is the fees are very low. They are very efficient. You can have your own Wise account. We can, for people who are helping us, we encourage them to set up their own Wise account because we can pay them for things. So for example, Rui bought some things, some people here, I think bought something. I think it was Rui bought something. No. I paid him back via Wise. Wise is a very easy way for us to transfer funds to people, so that people who are helping us when they have expenses like with books and stuff like that are purchased, we can pay them by transferring money via Wise. The same goes with, we pay most of our accommodation via it as well. Because it's all in different countries. I don't know if you realise, but it's very hard to do international transactions from a bank. Wise just makes it so much easier for us. So usually the people who help us will probably need a Wise account of their own, so we can transfer funds to them and things like that.
And you can set up monthly payments as well, which has been good.
You can, yeah.
Yeah, just
You
encourage
can,
people
Wise,
to consider
that's
that
right.
as well.
And we have a bank account in Wise in the UK, in the European Union, in Canada, in the United States, so you can actually transfer to that bank account.
So it's
And
like
then
a local
once a
one.
month we transfer out of that bank account to use whatever we need to use.
So for you in that country, it's like transferring locally.
Just local,
Yeah.
like a local transfer.
In the
And their fees are very low. It's very, very good service, and we'll be very sad if we get kicked off of it. And who knows, we might, but it's just been wonderful for the last few years to have that service. We also obviously have credit card service in Australia, but there's a merchant facility associated with that, and there's lots of very high fees with that and things like that. But you can still do that.
Right. So do you
Yeah, so the reason why I mentioned all of that is you can see from a practical perspective, there's areas that chew up a lot of money. And so we're looking for stuff that's suitable but doesn't like have huge numbers of money associated with it. So an example of that is when we did Belgium last year, and most of the venues wanted to charge us 30,000 Australian dollars a day for the venue, which is like 15,000 euros. One of them was 19,000 euros for a day.
That's because in Brussels there's a lot of, it's the type of market that they have. It's business.
All business related,
diplomatic,
all diplomats,
catered,
all large money.
Um,
So obviously Brussels is not a good place for us to go to do a venue. Does that make sense? Because it's just exorbitant rates there for venues. Here we got a venue like 4 times as large for the same price as a 50-seat venue we got in Brussels. So we thought, might as well use this venue and see what it's like. You know? And in the USA, our average price is around about the same, about 3,500 to 4,500, 5,000 US for a venue for a 3-day weekend. In the UK, it's a lot different because you've got all these little village halls, and you know, not all of them are suitable, of course, but you can find some that are. And so quite often we find in the UK, in Canada it's the same. In Canada they have all these little village halls like we do in Australia too. And so in UK, not the last venue, that cost us about 2,000 UK, I think, but the prior one cost us about 600 UK or something, you know, heaps different in terms of the funds. So even though it's disadvantageous to many of you to get to the UK because of how much it costs for accom and everything, for us it was very cheap. But then we're thinking, well, for us it was cheap, but for you it was expensive. That doesn't help us. We really want something that's good for both of us, you know what I mean? Because we think of your money like we think of ours. It's all money being spent, and so we need to consider that. So what we're trying to aim for, and this is something we'll talk about with some of the people we're going to meet with on Tuesday, what we're trying to aim for is sort of somewhere where we can go back, leave things set up. It's not high costs every time, but we can help with the costs, but also we're not paying so much big costs that it precludes us from visiting again for a few years because we need to save up again before we can go. The main reason why you haven't seen us in 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23 is because we just didn't have the funds to pay for it. We wanted to come, but we just don't have the funds to do that. We're not, I've spent all my money doing things with the Divine Truth. We have a bit of reserve, which we try to keep because we've got quite high expenses, so I try to keep 3 months of reserve in our business to keep everything ticking over. That gives me 3 months of decision time if I need to close things down. But generally we spend everything else. Yeah.
All right, Jake, we've got less than half an hour now.
Yeah.
If you want to cover any of these other points.
Yeah, so let's look at what we're looking at for the future. So we're thinking next year, 2 places minimum in Europe. So when we say Europe, we're talking European mainland, not England next year. So, because many of the English can come to places like this, you know, relatively cheaply, not necessarily that cheaply, but just as cheaply if you had to come to a place in England oftentimes. And it also means that people in the European Union can come. So we're thinking of flying in on Paris, because from Australia we've got two options. We either fly in on Heathrow, LHR it's called in the code, or we fly in on Charles de Gaulle, which is Paris airport. They're the two ways to get in direct for us. So we either come in there or come in Paris. And if we could pick up a van, fill it full of our gear, and then go on the road. Then we don't have any more flights, we just have a bit of fuel to get to places, and we can stay in a place for a month. And we can run a couple of events, set up the event for that period is what we're hoping to do. So what we're hoping to do next year is probably have Germany. It will probably be, we're also considering France, and here, Portugal, and we're hoping to spend 3 weeks at each place. And we set up the venue for that period, and then we might need a bit of a rest in between some places, which will add to the trip. But we can use the same tech. So at the moment, we don't have a kit here in the EU, a full kit. You notice here we're using the venue's speakers. Normally we were using our own in a venue, but here, because this venue had speakers, I didn't have to buy speakers this trip. Normally we do, and that's a $10,000 outlay to get speakers and speaker stands and cables and all that stuff for our kit. But we do need that eventually for a European kit. Right? If we could stick the European kit in a van, then we're on the road. We can get anywhere from Scandinavia down to Italy or across to Bulgaria or whatever, and across to Portugal. And for us, Europe is like as big as Australia. So we don't mind travelling for 3 days if that's what we've got to do to get somewhere. And we're happy to do that. So that's the kind of thing we're thinking of for Europe. That gives us the flexibility, like if someone wants to go to Italy one day, we go to Italy. If we set up a venue in France, we go to France. If we do Spain, we can do Spain. We can go anywhere. We can even go Denmark or Norway or Sweden, right up to the Arctic Circle with the guys in Vilhelmina. We can go all the way up there, right, with the same kit. So that's what we're thinking. We'd like to set up. To do that, we need to have somebody who will buy a van and then hire it to us for the 2 or 3 months that we're here, and we hire their car while we're here. So so they have a car still they can get around with, but we're driving their van with all their gear in it. And we also then need somewhere to store that stuff in it has to be a dry, tech-friendly location. And at the moment, we've been talking with Nicholas about that, right? So we have a van, if we have a van, and in fact, what can happen is he can even drive the van to a location, and then we don't even need to drive it, we can just fly to that location. But other than that, we can drive it. We don't care who drives it, we're happy to drive it one way or the other. And the main thing is how much time is being chewed up with the driving. So the only problem with like Sweden for us is that to get from France to Sweden is a 2,900 kilometre journey, which is going to take minimum probably of 4 days. That's 4 days one way, so that's 8 days return. That's 8 days out of our trip. That's 8 days accommodation and so forth. So it makes sense maybe in Sweden to have a different kit, because otherwise it'd be wasting 8 days every time we try to go.
And also once you add up the fuel costs of driving that far, a few years in a row. And the accommodation costs of staying overnight in places on the way back, you end up chewing a lot of funds up that you might be better off just flying there and having a kit in place. The kit itself requires specialised mounts that we've designed and made in Australia, sent to the location, cables,
as well as proper speaker stands, which you can only buy in the USA. You can't even get them here in the EU. And then, because I need the same speaker stands everywhere we go, you see, because it's the same kit. So I need the same thing everywhere we go. And so wherever we choose to go, if it's Europe, having a car where we can get around within a few thousand Ks is okay, but as soon as it gets up to 3,000, 4,000 Ks, now we're looking at a different kit, a different tech kit, because it becomes too prohibitively expensive to get the kit from one place to another by road. So these are the kind of things we're thinking about when we're organising locations. There's a lot, isn't there, to think about. And it's not as simple as what people might think, either bearing in mind we're paying for everything from Australia as well. So it's pretty complicated, to be honest, setting up an event. And the problem we're facing is that it took us a solid 5 months to organise. Every day, Mia and I worked every day, oftentimes anywhere up to 12 hours a day, just to organise this trip. It took us 5 months, 12 hours a day to organise this trip. Right? That's way too much time to organise a trip. It's chewing up large amounts of our time. So we need to come up with different ways of sorting that. Okay, so that's what we face in terms of the problem. Of course, if everybody who listened to Divine Truth, there's around about, from what I can gather, a few thousand people, and we're all donating like $20 a month or something, then we probably have enough to pay for every trip, you know what I mean? But that's not how donations work. People are motivated by their heart, and we don't want to pressurise people to donate. So we don't, we hardly, as you knew from this event, I don't think this is the first time I mentioned money, isn't it? In the entire event regarding the trip. So generally we don't share that because we just wait for people's desires. That's how we work. So a lot of times when we don't do things, it's not because of any other reason than there's just not the resources to do it. Simple as that.
All right, so we've got some options now. I have a list of kind of things we look at in a venue. We have talked about this briefly before on our last trip.
But rather than go through it,
yes,
it's probably best that you find the link to it, isn't it? Because we do have it online, I think, don't we?
No.
No.
But I can put it online.
Yeah. It might pay you that we do.
Yeah. I don't think we should go through it, but there are certain requirements that depending on if you want to be involved, to keep your eye out for.
So just when you're driving around your own place, wherever you live, oh, there's something, that might be useful, just find out some about it, but use this list as a requirements list to see, does it have this, does it have that? Oh, wow, it does, you know.
So for us, because our requirements are quite specific, it's quite difficult to find somewhere that sort of meets all of them. That often we end up in a higher end kind of a venue because we have certain requirements just about the noise levels and the seating, for example. But a lot of places, say in the US, we end up in these fancy hotels. We don't need to be in a fancy hotel, but we do need somewhere that's soundproof and has comfortable chairs and enough toilets. So, we went through a lot of venues in Canada, for example, that had everything we needed, but they didn't have enough bathrooms. And so then that really throws the whole event off because people, You've
got 60 to 100 people trying to go to the bathroom all at once, and there's one bathroom.
And so in the US last year, someone donated a beautiful venue to us. It was perfect in every way and it was free. But the cost of hiring 4 portaloos for the 3 or 4 days that were needed was really
exceeded the cost of a brand new premises.
The hotel venue.
In a hotel venue.
This year. So these are the kind of things just to be aware of. And we can post this venue sheet online for anyone who wants to, have a sort of an eye and an ear out in your local area. Because a lot of times it is people who have local contacts who find things that are not always, especially in Portugal, there's a lot of stuff that's not necessarily yet online.
And also that only a local can hire.
Yeah.
There's some rules here in Portugal where only a local can hire certain things, particularly public venues based on council, local government areas, and so we can't hire them. We're precluded from hiring them.
Yeah. Whether that's a point of law or just a point of custom, I'm
Yeah.
not really sure, but
Yeah.
that's what we encountered this year. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about anything? Yeah.
I have two questions actually. What would cost a kit for Sweden, for example? If there need to be a full kit for Sweden, what?
Not a full kit, because we're at Eva in Pairs, who's offered their venue. You could say it's a lovely place in northern Sweden. The main things that are needed there are some chairs. We're going to talk to them about what they need and what they're able to do themselves versus what we need to help them with.
But we need speakers.
We need speakers, and we need speaker stands, and we need cables, and a few other things like that. But we'll talk about it Tuesday.
So you don't want
it's a good question. What would a complete kit cost, and it could be stored in Scandinavia?
Yeah, so a complete kit, if we're looking at a bigger venue than if we're looking at a normal size venue that we would look at, which is more like a 100-seat venue, a complete kit for a 100-seat venue. When I say a complete kit, I'm not talking about what we travel with. I'm talking about the stuff that we need in country that we don't travel with. It's around about 16,000 Australian, which is about €8,000. Yep. In their case, because they have a smaller venue, we can halve the speakers. So we don't need 4 speakers, we only need 2. And so that reduces the price by €4,000.
So 4,000.
Well, more like 4,000 Australian, so 2,500 €.
So €5,500 it would be.
Yeah. That's about what we need for a kit. In Australia, we have a kit that we travel with and a kit in our studio. And we have a kit in the UK, a full kit in the UK, which can do the UK and Ireland. So we're completely kitted out in the UK now. We have a full kit in Southern America, in North Carolina. There's a full kit there. And another person bought a full kit in the east coast of, not us, but somebody else, bought a full kit on the west coast, of the US. So there's a full kit there with the exception of a few things we had to ship. And we don't have a full kit in Canada yet or the EU yet.
And what if, for instance, there's Serbia, a country too far that is not Sweden,
Yeah.
and enough people to visit and to teach? What
Then,
would that be?
If it's in the EU, we would
Yeah.
consider driving under those circumstances with the kit. So we could drive the entire EU kit to that location. It's far better if we can reuse a kit rather than have to move it around. But there are some problems, buying it. But there are some problems with that with border control, because you have to have what's called a carnet to cross borders that are... So it's a bit problematic between England and Ireland. So it's easy to get from England to Ireland, but Ireland's the EU and England's now exited, right? So now we have to have a special what's called a carnet for the kit to go between Ireland and England. Does that make sense? In the European Union, it's great because we can go to every country here, plus all of Scandinavia, without needing a carnet, as long as we can get the gear there, right? So it's just a matter of transportation of the gear. But as you know, sometimes that's a long way. And when you're traveling, like for us, it's the loss of time. But if somebody else drives the kit, they're losing time too. You've got to bear in mind that. So, they've got to take that time off at work or whatever they might be doing. And if they don't have that time, then it's just as bad for them to drive as it is for us to drive. They lose just as much time. So we've got to balance all that up, but preferably what we would like is one kit for the EU and maybe a second kit, a smaller kit in Scandinavia. And And we're almost there with that in terms of we've already manufactured 20 of these stands and poles and everything in the AU, in Australia, because we knew we'd need kits, and so we've already pre-built them. But we now need to ship them, and that in itself was quite pricey this year. Actually, we spent just nearly $3,000, 3,000 euro actually, nearly $6,000 in shipping costs of all of our kit gear, along with and then that doesn't include the manufacturer of the kit either. Just this year, so Corny and I were pretty busy. He manufactured most of the kits. I designed them all. And sent them overseas. But it was like, we ended up with the studio covered in boxes, getting sent to different countries and sorting out what's in each country. We have to make a toolkit for each country as well. It's quite convoluted, unfortunately. And but we've done that 5 times, and now we know what to do. We know what's in the kit. We can easily replicate that.
And it's not even in the cost there.
No, none of that's part of that cost.
My second question was, how many people attended here? Like if we divide the total.
I think we had 121 booked and 105 came.
Okay. So
in
it's
the
like
UK, 110 or something booked, and 97 or 9 came.
It was pretty close.
Close to 100.
Yeah, so it's
like
divided by
200 per
100.
person. It's like 200 per person, more or less.
Yeah, it's a lot, isn't it?
It's a lot.
A lot of people can't afford it.
But you go to any
And
seminar,
that's without you
it's
getting
minimum like 100 a day, like for any little seminar.
True.
It's
You
3 days.
got to put things in perspective, right?
Yeah, but there are a lot of costs of coming. But any other seminar that are paying, it's generally, 100, 200, 300 a day.
True, but people, one reason why we tell you the cost is most people don't realise. Most people don't even think of it, right? When you rock up to a free event, you're thinking, oh, it's free. Somehow it got free. I don't know how, but it was great. But most people don't think about it more than that. But obviously, there's significant costs involved in getting somewhere and doing things, and most people don't consider that. But when you do, you can see in comparison, it's still pretty cheap compared to going to like a business venue or a business event. Like I've considered going to some tech events, and it's like that. It's like $500 a day for them, and you still got to pay to get there and all the other things as well. So, we're doing it, and like as I was pointed out, we don't pay ourselves. So none of this comes to us. It's all for your benefit, not for our benefit. We don't get anything from it. So
hopefully it will be full in the next times.
Next year, you reckon 400 people? Yeah.
That would be in the future. Yeah,
it would be great.
It would be.
But there is also nice things about a small venue.
Yes.
You get a more intimate experience. We get to know you better. So in some ways, we'd prefer to do some smaller venues. We see in the long run, we're going to have to do larger venues with more people, but in the end, it's the face-to-face, the personal interactions generally that have the strongest benefit of people. So that's what we've found.
So in this university, what we were really hoping for was to have a lecture theatre half this size.
There is a lecture theatre here that's 150.
That would be ideal for us because it's still reasonably personable, and but also comfortable. But we couldn't arrange.
Couldn't swing it. Yeah, the people running this venue are not the same people running that venue.
This is their more commercial venue, and then the rest is sort of the education.
Yeah. And until they can sort of feel that we're here on an educational role rather than a religious role, they're probably not going to give us the venue.
Maybe we need to send them the video or something.
Not just that, just thank them, thank them for the venue, like we do. That's what we do. We thank the people who provide our venues for the venue, particularly when we feel, wow, that was a good venue and the people were very helpful. It's great to find a good venue because we can reuse it. So we're hoping we found some good venues. The English venue, we were hoping but it's not going to be able to be reused. Their attitude towards us is poor, so we can't reuse that venue. This venue, definitely can reuse this venue. It's a very good venue. Its potential for a larger audience is great. It's comfortable for you guys. It's easy for us to set up, relatively good venue. So very happy with this venue. We've sorted out some venues in other countries, and we think they might be good venues, and we might be able to reuse them, but we're not going to know until we actually run the event there, we see. And a lot of times it depends on the attitudes of the people there as to how good the venue ends up being. If they have a very negative attitude to us, so what sometimes happens is they have a good attitude to us initially, but then there's media comes along and there's an attack, and then there's media rocking up at the venue, and people get pretty stressed about all that. Like they're worried about the reputation of their own venue then, and they get really concerned about how we're damaging the reputation of their venue. And they get a lot of media saying, why are you letting them go there? They're charlatans who are ripping off people, blah, 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 and so they get really stressed that, the general public is now going to be against them with regard to our usage of the venue, and so they often change overnight. Their attitude changes overnight towards us. That happened in Ireland, where very friendly, easy to arrange, and then the next day it was like nobody wants to talk to us anymore. We couldn't even get to talk to anybody from the venue, and none of them would talk to us.
It was a nice venue.
It was a nice venue, comfortable chairs, good size, it's like fit 70 in there, comfortable enough, nice location, they have a nice area to eat outside, it was a golf course, but they were pretty stressed about the media. And so we're hopeful that will die down and we'll be able to contact them again and maybe reuse the venue, but it's hard to know. Yeah.
Okay, just a couple, and we've got to finish.
Yeah. Yep.
Got to be out in an hour.
Yeah.
You talked about buying it, like if people want to buy a venue, and you said the whole month and then 4 times a month. How many seats are you aiming for?
Around about the 100 or a bit more would be good.
120 would be lovely.
The area we're looking at is about 150 square metres would be ideal.
So open space?
Open space. It has to have no poles,
Columns.
no columns.
As you know from when you were looking for venues.
Yeah.
125 square meters.
150.
150 seats?
Well, 150 square metres will usually give us about 120 seats.
Okay, so 150.
Yeah, but then of course there's chairs and there's lots of things to consider when you're buying a venue. Toilets is a big thing. Parking is another big thing. People need to be able to get there and stay there, and you need to look at the location a bit too. Is there enough accommodation for 100 people to come? There's a lot to consider.
As you know,
I wouldn't recommend just going out and getting the venue and hoping for the best. You need to consider a lot of things first.
Yeah.
But yes, and collectively that can be done too. Because remember, a venue can be used by others when we're not there. So you could hire it out, you could still do other things when we're not there. So, and you really want it to be used as often as you possibly can, actually, if you had a venue. So, that's a possibility, but it's you've got to be real careful what you do before you do it, because what we've found is that if we're only there for a week or a fortnight or a month, then generally hiring is a lot more effective than buying something. If you're there a bit more often, or you've got other uses for it, then it's different. You could consider buying it and then have other people come to the same venue and all of those kind of things. But we don't want people to be operating venues for our sake, specifically.
You'd want it to be something that you feel like you want to offer space for people, and you want to
facilitate meetings and whatever. So yes, that's a possibility, but it's got to be done in a very considered and careful manner.
The best way to do it is to decide what you want and then look, rather than look and be convinced that I'll make it work and cut this corner and fixer-upper of this little bit, and then you end up with a venue that's not really good for anybody.
Yeah.
It's better to know exactly what you want. And
Now, we've designed a venue, actually
Yeah.
a brand new venue we've designed, which we plan to build in Australia. But it's going to be a while because we haven't got the funds to build it. So we're just coming up with ideas at the moment about venues in terms of what the ideal is. We know what our ideal is in terms of venue. This is fairly close in some ways. They've treated the ceiling with sound, so you can hear the sound just goes out and it doesn't come back. It's great, eh? Very peaceful venue in that regard. This is what our studio is like. Those of you who sat in it, it's like the sound goes out and it doesn't echo back. So we've set up our studio as a 50-seat venue. So that's only an area that's only 100 square metres. That's less than that. It's actually the actual 50. It's a 50-seat venue. The whole studio itself is 96 square metres, and we use a portion of it for the recording area and everything. And the seating area is only 64 square metres, and we can fit 52 people in there in really comfortable chairs. We bought these church chairs second-hand. There's one of our sisters in Australia, Diane, she bought the chairs for us, and so it's very comfortable. It's like you guys now are comfortable. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's okay, because as long as if with 100 people you're getting to the point where you almost need a stage. With 50 people or 60 people, you don't need a stage.
And you don't need the slope.
Don't need a slope. Yeah. Don't need any of that. So in our studio, we've actually put our cameras up quite high. We've actually got them permanently installed. And so all we do now in our studio is we just go in, turn on everything. It takes us about 5 minutes. Format all the recording devices, and we're ready to go. And at the end of the day, I just take the recording devices, unload them all onto some servers, which are also in the studio, and that's the end of the day. It's just so good. So that's just a little venue. So it can be quite small, and we're happy to go to a small venue. We don't need large ones. All we do is we run extra events. So you might stay there for a month rather than 2 weeks, and you run like 2 events or 3 events in that time. Or you go one weekend, middle day, Wednesday, another weekend, and then you have a week or two's break just for a rest, or a week break, and then you do the same again. One weekend, middle break, next weekend, and then home. You're running 4 events then, and if you run it all the same material, you've fundamentally got 200 people that you spent time with in that time, and you've all had a relatively intimate experience. And this is very helpful, right? So even a small venue is not out of the question. As long as it's around 50 people or so can fit, it's good enough. It just depends on how we book it and how expensive it is to book. But if you could book it out for a solid month, the biggest problem we have in England is you've got all these lovely venues all around the countryside, but they're all used by this person for 1 hour, and this person for 3 hours, and this person for, this
Summer
group,
class
this
and,
summer class, and this yoga class, and this.
Yeah.
And so by the time we look at booking it, and we try to book it for 2 weeks, we haven't got a 2 week slice in any period to book it. So even though it's available, it's not really available to us. Yeah. Make sense? Yeah. So there's lots of options. And also, we can time our coming so that it's not too hot, not too cold, not too, if we time it in the summer, obviously you're going to need some probably cooling of some kind of aircon. And fans is not good for us because it blows all of our recordings. It interferes with all of our recordings. You hear the fans in the recording. It's impossible to remove them. So, this is great because you can't hear the aircon. You have to be real quiet, can't you? You can just hear the little whine of the compressors, and that's it. That's what you want, something that's quiet. It's good. So hopefully in that, and Mary's going to put up her requirements list for a venue. Yep, we'll do that.
But
And
can I just say about that, my reservation with that, please don't go approaching venues
on our behalf.
on our behalf.
Just say, can I have a look at the venue? And then use the checklist to check things off.
And if you think it has potential, please contact me and we can make a plan from there.
Yeah.
The issue is if everyone just launches out and with all of your addictions and all of your different emotions without any real feeling for God first and love of people,
Yeah, and love of the venue.
You actually can tarnish a venue against us
Before we
approach them. So please be mindful of that in your approach.
Yeah. We're very considerate of people and their feelings when we approach venues. So the key is to just innocently ask, can I see your venue? And you can have a bit of a checklist and check off things, that's fine. But if you start saying, we're going to do it in divine truth and blah, 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 now you're acting as our representative and you're going to be tempted, your actions are going to be potentially damaging to us even ever getting the venue. That makes sense?
Okay.
Good day.
Lovely.
All right. Is there any other questions you guys have? France, you want to ask?
And then we can go behind to the man in the white shirt. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name.
Did you want to say something concerning the walk?
Pardon?
The walk?
I'm going to email everybody.
We're going to email you.
Yeah. So walk, yes.
There is a walk happening?
On Wednesday at probably 10:30, 11.
Yeah.
And we'll meet, and it's probably going to be in the centre of Vila Real.
Yeah.
Oh, is there?
Is there?
On Wednesday.
Oh, really?
I don't know if it's happening this week.
It wouldn't be MotoGP, would it?
No, not the GP, but I think it's a group of motorbikes.
Okay.
So it's a racetrack.
Okay, so we better check that.
Yeah, this is why I need to do my...
We need to do a bit of research,
yeah,
which we'll do in the next day. So.
That would be interesting.
We organised something and it was all closed off.
Or we're just sitting there trying to listen and then...
Motorbikes going past or whatever. Yeah, that would be good. So, we'll have to have a look. Yeah,
I'll check it out.
Thanks for letting us know. These are kind of local things we need to know.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I'll email everyone. Did everyone get the email this morning? You might not have seen your emails, but if you got it this morning, you'll get the next one.
So what about having some chat group for people who would like to discuss and maybe solve some of these problems?
We've found that any group chat on the net usually attracts huge amounts of addictions in the part of people, and it ends up, from our perspective, it's a waste of our time, to be blunt. We don't mind other people setting them up if that's what they wish to do, but Mary and I don't want to manage a group of people who are in their addictions is quite a time-consuming job.
Right.
And if we set up some kind of a chat thing, we would then have to monitor it.
Yeah, I didn't mean that you should do that, but for example, in certain countries there are several people thinking of this, so are they doing this separately?
Yeah, a lot of people think of it. A lot of people think of it. And a lot of people think it's going to be beneficial, and frequently it's not. Frequently what happens is the people who want power take control of the chat, of the group, and the people who are spirit influenced take control of the group, and it frequently denigrates into a terrible way of just abusing people, unfortunately.
Yeah. What we do, if you notice, at the start of every group we do internationally, we ask people to raise their hand for where they're from, and that's to give them a chance to meet each other if they're from the same country and they don't yet know each other, and if they want to.
Yeah.
And we feel like that's just enabling opportunities. but it's more in harmony with God's way
Because
because
you're all here,
you're in person.
already expressing a desire.
You're expressing a desire, and also you're not doing it via a screen. You're doing it in person.
Face to face.
And if you want to form a friendship or form a project or form anything from that point forward, you've got that opportunity. But it's going to be far more informed than if you just meet online.
Yeah.
And you haven't had the chance to feel the person and feel whether you
And
want
also,
to engage
Mary
with
and
them.
I do not have the time, energy, or resources to manage or police such things.
Yeah.
So we can't agree with them for that reason, in the sense that we can't be responsible for them in any way. And frequently people say, "Oh, but on this group, you know, these people said this about you," and I go, "Well, that group wouldn't have a clue what we're doing." Frequently lies are told on these groups as well. Frequently people who want power over others frequent the groups, and people who are needy frequent the groups, and all of them frequently are not addressing their feelings. And so they're just using each other to not feel their feelings. And Mary and I don't agree with all that. So for us, groups are established through face-to-face contact. So if you're going to have a group, we feel you're far better off doing it face-to-face than you are in any other method.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, how many of you are from Portugal? A few. How many are from Spain? A few. How many are from, Germany? A few. You could easily set up a group, right, where you meet each other once a month or something and see each other and talk and learn some things and maybe play a few videos and work out what that means and discuss it. And by the time we see you again, you'll have a bunch of questions to ask, and that's all good. That'd all be great. But doing it via click, 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 looking at a screen, there's no soul in it. There's no soul-to-soul interactions anymore. It's all your soul into your mind, into language, into another person's language, whatever they interpret, into their mind, and then it's all very inefficient when it comes to learning God's truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And even working together towards a common goal, it's important
to meet,
to
face to face. And in the spirit world, every person in the spirit world has email. All you have to do is have a thought towards the other person, and they get the thought, and it's a package that you accept or reject. Every person has that, right? That's email. That's where email comes from, the whole concept of it. And so every person in the spirit world has that, but do you think they use that to do anything? They just organise things with it. They use it. So the way we use email is email you, we're coming here. Email somebody else, do you want to do this? It's for organisation purposes, the same way we would use it in the spirit world. We don't use it to discuss emotions. We don't use it to discuss spiritual matters. We don't use it generally to discuss anything other than arrangements. And there's a reason for that, because any other thing you use it for, the soul is missing out of it. The feelings are missing. The attitude of the person is missing. You don't see them. You don't get to know who they are. You get to feel them. You only get all of that through face-to-face contact. So for us, the things we want to be involved in is the face-to-face. And this is why we also resist to a degree just doing like online presentations where everybody else is online, because you don't get to feel people as well. The feelings of people, your expressions, and your feelings that you're having while you're having them. You don't get to feel all that very easily. It's far better face to face. And so we would recommend that if you want to have a group, make sure that it's face to face and you sort out your issues and you sort them out lovingly. And you don't use computers and tech to avoid your issues. Same applies, I feel. It's a little better. It's a little better, but it's not much.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
The question was, what about Zoom?
Yeah. We find that when we do that kind of thing with people, it's open to, they can't feel our feelings. We can feel theirs to a degree, but they can't feel ours. But when we're in front of you, you can feel, I love you, right, Pierre? You can feel that, can't you? Even though I'm saying challenging things to you at the same time, like your stuff with women need to deal with, I still love you, right? You can feel it, but when we're not face to face, you can't feel that. And so when I say the same thing, you get offended. So what? It's much more prone to interpretation based on your own injuries than when a person is present. When we're present, you get to feel. Oh, that's what they feel like. Yeah.
All right, last question is up the back there. Have us wiped.
Yeah.
Where can we find the requirements of the venue? Where will you place it?
Mary will probably put it on her blog initially. I'll put it on her website eventually. mary.divinetruth.com is the blog.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, as Mary's already pointed out during the week, when we're doing new arrangements and stuff, firstly, generally it goes on Mary's blog, because I at the moment just don't have any time to update that website, to be frank. Most of it goes on Mary's blog first, and then eventually I get around to updating things on the website, if I get around to it. My intention was with this trip to put it on the website, but I just didn't get to it. We were still purchasing and learning how to use equipment 4 days before we travelled. It was just stressful, so I didn't get to do it.
Yeah, and so I'll put it on mary.divinetruth.com. I think you all know, but in case you don't, event.divinetruth.com. You can subscribe there, so anytime we publish a new event, you'll get an email notification, so you'll know.
Yeah.
And also, usually, if we have plans, if we're thinking of a new project or a new trip, I usually publish an update on mary.divinetruth.com, and you can subscribe there as well.
Yeah. We did used to try to do it once a month, but man, we've been so busy that
it's too much.
Doing computer work is pretty hard sometimes when you're so busy doing everything else that you just don't get to it. Really.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Thanks for spending time with us, you guys.
Wanting to know a bit of what goes on behind the scenes. It's interesting to know. A lot of people, when they come to Australia, they realise, wow, there's so much going on, and we didn't know, didn't know what was happening. And yeah, we're trying our best, given the time and resources, as I said, to help you grow spiritually in your relationship with God. And one reason why we gifted the Paget messages to you is because we feel this is something you can go to when we're not there and learn truths that we would normally teach you anyway, and are there already in black and white that you can read. And so don't forget, don't neglect to do that, and that'll help you greatly in your own progress as well. And then when you come to see us, we'll be like, oh, what about this thing? What about that thing? You'll be more like, you'll have a degree of understanding, and then you'll have things you're not really sure about and you want to ask about, and it makes things more engaging. Yeah.
Keeps you in a process.
Yeah.
With God.
So we'd encourage you to do that. And thanks for your interest in terms of what's going on, in terms of what we're trying to achieve, in terms of sharing truth with others. And we honour the fact that you desire to be involved. We just have certain requirements that need to be met in order for that involvement to occur.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Thank you for...
No, thanks.
Thank you.